It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. Great to have you in studio with us today. We're going to be talking about smoke impacts in the Verde Valley, all the way up to the Flagstaff area with the Coconino National Forest. Today we have Fire Information Officer Dwayne Tiwa. Welcome back to studio.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. I was just saying before we started that it's been a couple of years since you've been here.
Yes.
And then Deputy District Ranger Deborah Molay is in studio. Welcome to studio for your first time.
All right, thank you.
Last night we had a public meeting. Over the last, I guess, mid-May was when a lot of these fires, we had the Mormon fire, Cowboy fire, Pivot Rock fire. The Jack fire is the most recent one for the Coconino National Forest. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. So the Mormon fire was out there east of east of Munns Park. Cowboy fire was kind of between Munns Park but closer to Mountain Air and Kachina Village. Pivot Rock fire was burning or is burning at 216 87. They're all lightning strikes. Jack fire was also a lightning strike. And that's the only time that you guys ever take any of these wildfires and turn them into a management fire.
That's correct.
That is correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So at that point in time, and I'm just trying to see if I've got this right, because I've done these stories so many times with you guys, and we've been, in mid-May was when a lot of them seemed to start. We had some storms that rolled through. We had some lightning strikes. I want to say like May 15th was...
Mormon started on May 15th, and
Yes.
Cowboy started on the 17th.
On the 17th, so they were like back to back.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Okay, and then I get Brady on the phone or George Josen's on the phone, and they tell me that these are going to be used for management purposes. Maybe we should start there. What are the management purposes of these fires when the lightning strikes?
So the primary role of taking a lightning strike fire and allowing it to grow is to restore the natural role of fire on the land. So when we do get an opportunity or we see a lightning strike in a certain area, we analyze that area and determine, is this a good time to let fire take that natural role again, or do we need to suppress it? And so in the case of the Mormon and the Cowboy, we gathered all of our specialists together, looked at the area, looked at how the fire was burning in low intensity, wasn't moving fast, was consuming fuels at a slower rate. And so we looked at all of the things that are in that area, what values would be and need to be protected if that fire were to continue to burn, and then what benefits would we derive if that fire continued to burn. So we all talked about that for several hours, and then determined, okay, this might be a good option to do. Let's go ahead and move forward and let it do its thing. But then we drew a boundary of where we were comfortable letting that fire be, and it usually bumps up against those values that we were identifying and discussing.
Okay, so I know Cowboy fire was going to be allowed to go about 3,000 acres, I think. Is what
Roughly,
it was.
yes.
Roughly, yes.
Roughly 3,000.
Yes.
Mormon fire, I think, was 10,000 acres.
Yes.
You
10 or
got,
11, yes.
Yeah, you got a little over 7,200, I think, out of the 10,000 before we decided to...
78.
78,
Yeah.
7,800, okay. And then Pivot Rock fire, has that really had any impacts on us at all?
Not too much.
Smoke-wise?
Not too much. There were some smoke impacts to Highway 87, a little bit on Highway 260, but for the most part, they tried to utilize a series of roads to try to really reduce that impact to Highway 87. Though we were in close coordination with ADOT during those operations.
Not a lot of residents in the immediate area there, right? I mean, that was kind of northeast of Pine Strawberry, so
Yes.
correct.
were they
yes.
being impacted at all?
There were some days that they were impacted by some smoke.
Okay.
Yes.
So what I noticed is that during May, when we were doing the management fires, it was cool in May, which is May and June are typically our driest and warmest months. But this year again, we had a weird May where it was cool. It rained. I told you before the show we were going to try to go camping every weekend, and it seemed like Thursday started, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday it would let up, and then it'd be nice all week long, and then rain the next weekend again. So it seemed like every weekend. But you didn't see a whole lot of impacts from the fires in May. It seemed like when the thermostat came up that we really started to see a lot of smoke start to show up. What was the cause of that? All this additional smoke?
There was a combination of things. I think we had a very, very weird weather pattern this year, and we had a lot of communication with the Weather Service, to the degree that we were actually bringing them out to our briefings in the morning before we would get started, and really try to pinpoint and get nailed down a good, accurate forecast for the day, and as well as 2-3 days out, so we could look at a few days out and for planning purposes. And oftentimes we would get something in the morning as far as a weather forecast that would be completely different in the afternoon than what was read. So that was our biggest challenge with trying to really plan around the most variable thing that we face when we engage in these activities. It's the weather. So that was our biggest challenge, and there were some days that our science and Mother Nature did not align, and that created a few bad days with some impacts.
It really, I would imagine when it comes to these kind of fires, management fires. I mean, the Mormon fire to me seemed like it had the most impact. Cowboy fire, we had reduced speed limits along I-17. Yes. You drop down to 45 miles per hour. You get through that area, you're done, no big deal. But the Mormon fire did seem to have quite a bit of. It was the most, I think, visual of all the fires, it seemed like. I remember driving home and coming back, it was just, you could always see it. So was there a lot more burnout operations on that fire than initially thought, maybe?
There was quite a bit more, given the fact that coming around the base, the southwest side of Mormon Mountain, there's a road that came around, and we tactically tried to connect a series of roads with either dozer line or opening old roads that had been closed years prior, and utilizing that system, coming around as a protection line, as a perimeter, and utilizing blacklining operations for that to build a buffer in there. That oftentimes got extended because there was really no good place to our terminology that we use is hang it up, or put it to a point where we could limit the fire spread to a certain degree. So there were some areas that required a little bit more ignition operations or firing operations, and that generated more smoke.
And with that combined with the weather deciding, I'm not going to go with what you predicted, I'm going to do the other thing. It seems to me, and we talked about this the week prior to it really getting hot. I talked to Brady Smith about this, and I think it was George Josens actually, that we knew that the intensity was going to increase. The winds were not going to be there the winds is what ventilates this stuff. I mean, the smoke column goes straight up, and then the wind pushes it usually from the southwest to the northeast, and it gets out of everybody's way. That didn't happen this time.
No.
Correct.
The first day I noticed, I was driving down, and I remember I was choking on smoke from mountain air all the way down the Verde Valley, and I thought, and a lot of people did that day, were calling here and saying, is there another fire? That it was just so much smoke in the area.
So Dwayne mentioned predicted weather patterns. We would get our forecast, and then by the afternoon it would not turn out the way that was predicted. And so we plan on that particular weather pattern for that day to take the smoke up and transport it in the direction we think that it's going to go. We had days where that did not happen. Either the wind didn't come in and actually transport it, so then the smoke stayed in the area, or it reversed direction, or the inversion would come down sooner than expected. So what happened was a lot more smoke was left in the area than was expected.
And we're put in a little bit of a situation where we have fire on the interior, that we're also trying to monitor the interior part of the fire and make sure that it doesn't get into an alignment that has the potential to threaten the perimeter line that we're trying to safely fire off of for that blacklining operation I spoke about earlier. So factoring all that in and trying to put us in a better situation a day out, 24 hours out, 48 hours out, that was the big challenge with the weather, and making sure that there was not a situation that was going to create a potential threat to Mormon Mountain, which was what we were trying to protect.
Gotcha. All right, we have to take our first break. Coconino National Forest Fire Information Officer Dwayne Tewa and Deputy District Ranger Deborah Mollet in studio today. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
You've known for years that this is the #1 cause of lung cancer, smoking. That's why the Surgeon General issued this warning. But do you know the #1 cause of lung cancer for non-smokers? It's in this room. You can't see it or smell it. It's radon. Radon is an invisible radioactive gas that seeps inside your home from underground. It can build up to dangerous levels without notice. Now the Surgeon General has issued another lung cancer warning. And whether you smoke or not, breathing radon can cause lung cancer. That's why you need to have your home tested. Protect your family. Call 1-800-SOS-RADON. Heed the warning. Have your home tested, because radon problems can be fixed.
Oh, look, a redhead. Staring contest. You still got it. I know.
Come alive with the forest.
The dad was cute.
You were looking right at us. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck.
So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing. And it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
Welcome back to Countywide. Dwayne was promoted. He is now the new fire staff officer, Dwayne T. of the Coconino National Forest, and Deputy District Ranger Deborah Mollet in studio today. So we've been talking about, we've had four, now we've had a total of 5 now on the Coconino National Forest. We still have the Pivot Rock, which is going. Is that one still going, or is that one all done?
That's in patrol status right now.
That's in patrol status. Cowboy Fire is just about done as well, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
Mormon Fire, where are we at with that one?
That one is in patrol status as well.
Okay, and then the Jack Fire out by Clint's Well.
And that's got a lot of activity on it.
Okay, now let's talk about the Jack Fire real quick while I've got you here. How many acres is it? Do we know right now? And then how many acres are we looking to accomplish with that?
Approximately 15,000 as of this morning, the current size of it. And the planning area for the Jack Fire is 127,000 acres, but it's not likely that it's going to get that big. We're anticipating that it could grow to 30,000 acres or a little bit more than that.
Okay, all right. Let's go back to the smoke. People are probably going to want to know, okay, so what do we do to remedy this situation so we don't have all this smoke again? Because I know I had heard that people in Munns Park were actually duct taping windows and doors closed to keep the smoke out of the house. So what do we do to kind of minimize that in the future? Do we have plans yet, or are we talking about that, or?
Well, we have smoke management as an objective, and when we look at the lightning strike fires at the beginning, and we were considering doing something different than suppression, smoke management, or smoke impacts, I should say, to surrounding communities is an objective. It's there. It's on the forefront of the firefighters' minds all the time. Typically, we get that southwest flow. It's a little bit easier to handle. We had the weather that kind of didn't give us what we were expecting, at least with Mormon when you were seeing the smoke impacts. Moving forward, we're having a lot of discussions at the leadership level of what would that trigger be? Like, is there a specific trigger we could define better of how we're doing with regards to that objective? I know on Mormon, when we saw that objective was not going to be met, and there was there's like 10 objectives we had with that fire. When we saw we weren't going to meet that, our reaction was, okay, let's go to the nearest containment lines and finish the fire off. Like, let's not let it to continue burn. Let's get it to where we can safely manage it and shorten the impact of the duration. And that's a couple days you saw some heavy smoke because that combined with the weather. So we got it back to where we could protect that, all the values surrounding that, and a good place for the firefighters to hold it. And that's kind of how we're currently reacting to that smoke impact and whether or not we're meeting that objective. But we're looking at doing something a little bit different, or maybe deploying more smoke monitors. We brought in an expert, an air quality expert, to help us understand that issue better and what we might be able to improve upon.
What I keep hearing, though, is that the weather was just unusual. That southwest wind that usually takes it away just didn't and dropped it back on everybody. So, you know, we can't change the weather.
No, we can't.
It's going to be the way it is. Now let's talk about this, because the big picture is, and you know, years ago, before we were here, and even when we were here, when the lightning hit the ground, it just took off and did its thing. And that's what we're reintroducing when the lightning does strike the ground. Now, if I go out and start a fire, you don't manage those.
No.
You go out and you put those things out.
Correct.
But if Mother Nature sends a bolt of lightning down here, which is a possibility over the next few days, we've got lightning coming in with those chances of showers. We saw, I'm going to say northeast of Flagstaff, out by Holbrook, they had half-inch hail going down last night as this other fire is going on down by Yarnell. So it's unusual. But we do have lightning a possibility. So these fires do benefit the forest.
Correct.
And that's their purpose. I mean, that's what it used to do, and now we've got people living in the wildland-urban interface. Am I saying that right? Okay, wild. Okay, so we're protecting those communities. And what else are we doing out there when we're doing using these management fires?
So I had an interesting question last night.
Okay.
That, the perception that we're using fire as the main tool for thinning the forest. And really what we use fire for, now when you're talking about pre-settlement times, yes, that was Mother Nature's way of thinning the forest. But after human influence, that obviously changed. And now we're in a situation where we're looking at fire as a tool for protection, primarily. You know, when we start talking about prescribed fire, we're usually coming in as a second entry behind mechanical thinning, hand thinning, to really take out the decadent stands and reduce that capacity. What is left is what we would term activity fuels, so the lighter limbs and needles and everything, and that needs to go somewhere. So that's where we utilize fire as the tool to kind of clean up and really kind of sweep up the needle cast off the floor, utilizing fire in those particular situations. Very similar to what we were doing when we were looking at managing a fire, trying to reduce the older dead down fuels that are on the forest floor, not necessarily to try to kill trees, because that's not one of our objectives. Really, it's trying to put some fire back on the ground to protect the values that we were identified that were potentially at risk.
I guess if I look at my yard and I've got a bunch of leaves laying all over my yard, it would be real easy for me to just burn those off. It's the same thing in the forest.
Correct.
You know, I rake them up, but I mean, the forest, what'd you say, 800 and some odd thousand acres?
800,
you can't really rake the forest.
1.86 million.
Just under 2 million acres on the
Yeah.
Coconino.
Oh, yeah.
On the Coconino, 850,000 around Flagstaff.
They don't make a rake big enough for that. Right, and I've had this conversation with you guys before. That lightning strike hits, and then typically the fire does just kind of crawl through, and that's what we want it to do, right? It's just going through and burning off those pine needles and the little branches that have fallen out of the pine trees, the pine cones and everything else. But then you guys do have to come in and say, okay, this is the barrier. So I just want to remind everybody again. So we're gonna this is the barrier. Here's the lightning strike. Here's the barrier. We're gonna burn this around here just to keep that fire from getting outside of that point. It's gonna burn up to the area that you guys have burnt.
Correct.
And then clean up that whole area.
Correct.
Right.
Did we get some good work done with these fires?
Yes.
I believe
Yes.
so.
So a lot of our objectives that we were looking at were met for all the fires.
There is a ton of things going on at Mormon Mountain. There's a lot of threatened and endangered species, owl packs. We have northern goshawks in the area. There's a large major telecom site or communication site at the top of Mormon Mountain. And the north side of Mormon Mountain is the beginning of the watershed for Lake Mary, which provides the city of Flagstaff a majority of their water. So this spot kind of was affecting, by treating this spot, we're protecting all of those values, which are pretty big, long-term values. It's not a fly-by-night kind of thing. It's things that we would want to see protected in the long run.
Okay, all right, let's take our second break. We're talking with the Coconino National Forest today about some of the smoke impacts from the wildland fires we've had over the past few weeks. This is Countywide. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. Even though we are one of the most food-rich countries in the world, 15 million children don't know where their next meal is coming from. This is unacceptable, and something the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks is working to solve. Instead of accepting that our country lets billions of pounds of surplus food go to waste every year, Feeding America has made it their mission to help families in need by rescuing this food. Through food pantries and meal programs, the nationwide network of food banks provides more than 3 billion meals, serving virtually every community in the United States, including yours. Join me in supporting Feeding America and your local food bank by visiting feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just a couple minutes left of the program. Tonto National Forest has gone into fire restrictions as of June 9th, 2016, because this show will re-air. Coconino National Forest, Prescott National Forest, I know they're talking about fire restrictions. Where are we at with you guys as well?
Yeah, we're pushing some of our indices as we got through this last heat wave over the weekend that have significantly reduced some of the live fuel moistures, and then with the current fire activity going on, we are starting to see an increase in fire activity, whether that be human caused or lightning caused. So we have been in discussions about the potential of going into fire restrictions as early as next week, the latter part of next week. Having talked with the Kaibab National Forest along with the Apache Sitgraves National Forest, we all are trending in the same direction. So there is a good likelihood that there is the potential right around mid to late week that an announcement will be coming out whether or not we will be going into stage 1 restrictions.
Let me ask you this, and I asked you this before the show. You guys had 144 abandoned campfires over the Memorial Day weekend. Okay. You had 28 last weekend, and that's the ones you found. Mm-hmm. How big of a role does irresponsibility on the public play on going into fire restrictions?
It does have an impact. It certainly does. And given the fact that, with the current fire activity going on and our resources that get stretched thin on occasion, there is always that potential that if we don't find it, that it could get out and then give us even more problems down the road. So that is a factor that we consider when we start talking about the possibility of going into fire restrictions.
Okay. So we should put our campfire out.
Please do.
We should have, at least 5 gallons of water with us.
At least.
Then don't drink it, don't bathe in it, take that 5 gallons of water, and when you're done with your campfire, pour it on it a little bit, stir it. Stir it, because it's amazing. I've put out numerous campfires. That water hits the top and it looks like it put the thing out, but you stick that shovel down there and you pop it up, and boy, it's still real hot down there. Mm-hmm. So you got to keep doing that until I can stick my hand on it, right? Cool to the touch?
Yes,
above
cool to the touch, yes.
Cool to the touch.
Yeah. She's like, well.
Above it first?
Oh, yeah, but should you be putting your hand in there? I don't know about that.
No.
All right, another thing. Trash collectors. You are not garbage collectors.
We do collect.
You are.
Yeah, by default,
to.
we do have a little bit of a trash issue with people camping in the forest. So, supposed to take your trash with you, and also anything you might have used as a toilet facility. Mm-hmm. Appreciate if they took that with them.
Pack it in, pack it out. Wow. I've said it so many times. Dwayne, congratulations on the promotion.
Thank you.
He's the fire staff officer at Coconino National Forest. I look at it so I don't make a mistake, which I did anyways. And Deborah, good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Thanks for coming in. All right, that is today's Countywide. Be careful out there with your campfires. We'll talk to you again next time.